Now we're going to look at our first topic in Going for Goals and Keep on Learning, and that's mindset. It's really important this is really important for all young people, but particularly for those young people and those children who've experienced a lot of ACEs in their past. They are the children that often feel that they have no sense of agency, they have no control over what happens to them. And it's easy to see how in the care system, children feel things are done to them. You know, they're moved without reference to their own wishes in placements and in schools and so on. So they very often end up feeling that they have no sense of self-efficacy or agency, and we need to work really hard to develop that with them. This is one of my favourite activities. It's in the Year 6 materials, the green booklet, and it's about developing a sense of responsibility. So in this activity, the pupils are given a range of scenarios and they are told to complete a task, and they have to think of as many excuses as they can for not doing it. And then they share those in the class, and they share their own scenarios, perhaps in their real lives, when they make excuses for not doing things, and they're invited to explore whether they're actual reasons or just excuses, and how far they take responsibility or they blame others or blame circumstances for not being able to do something. Then they put together a book of excuses for the class, and they can add to it. It's a great activity. It works just as well in secondary, and you'll find that, you know, children are really kind of listening out to each other and hearing when they or their peers are making excuses. So really nice activity. The topic links to a number of progression steps, mainly within What Matters Statement 3, which includes a focus on decision making. You can have a look at that at your leisure. And you'll see that in the SEL materials, there is a similar progression in learning outcomes, with perhaps a little bit more of a breakdown of the sub-skills involved. And they continue through Year 7 and 8 and 9. You'll find those in the secondary learning activity booklets. And taking responsibility and efficacy, self-efficacy, are specific outcomes here, as is having an internal locus of control. I know that I think it says something like, I know it's usually down to me, not just good or bad luck or other people, when things go well or things go wrong. And we'll look at how that locus of control work is developed from the early years. So we hear these terms, self-efficacy and agency, quite a lot in education, and what they both refer to is the belief that what you do impacts on outcomes, that you can make a difference. And the activities in this theme provide opportunities to make this explicit. I love this activity from Year 1, just because, and basically what happens here is the adult takes some examples of what the children have learned to do and then provides a series of questions about what helped them to achieve these things. So, you know, did you manage that because you wore your lucky pants? And they have an equal number of those things that are, you know, unrelated external examples, because the window was open, because the sun was shining, and so on, and those examples that refer to things that they have in fact done, like listening carefully or keeping on practicing, and so on. So this eventually kind of builds to and leads to an internal locus of control, where you attribute what happens to what you can, what you've done, rather than to unrelated external stimuli. Now, we can practice this, of course, throughout the school day, and that's important to do whenever possible. But we know, as with all social and emotional learning, that it's important to return to it explicitly from time to time. So in Year 3, for example, we have an activity called Lucky Dip, where pupils pull a sentence out of a bag, read it out and place it in one of two piles. So that's taking responsibility or blaming things outside themselves. And again, this is the idea of locus of control, although of course it's not called that at this stage. The locus of control work has been found to be hugely influential in achievement in all areas and walks of life. So it's really something that we do need to be developing in schools. Lovely lesson extension to the locus of control work that one school I worked with did, which was to get the children to actually identify those things that they could control and the things they couldn't control in relation to their learning. And then they compared it to this one, which we've had permission to reproduce here. Return to again in Year 7, this idea of taking responsibility, of developing an internal locus of control, of having agency, self-efficacy. And this activity is called the three misters. And again, I particularly like this one. I thought I'd share this with you. So the three misters are Mr. It's up to me, Mr. The world's against me, and Mr. It's me against the world. And these three characters, you have three character cards, which you put in one pile, and then you have a range of scenarios on one of the resource sheets. And the idea is that the children in groups, they pick one character, they pick a scenario, and they have to role play how that character might react in this particular situation. And then the rest of the group guess which character they are. So it's quite a fun one. And again, you know, it can be reinforced throughout the school day as saying, oh, you've been a little bit, you know, the world's against me, Mr. The world's against me there. And then rewarding or noticing when students are perhaps taking more responsibility and referring to them as Mr. It's up to me. This is a quote I absolutely love, and it's quite useful for slightly older learners perhaps to explore quotes like this. You know, are they able to say, I dropped it rather than it fell, and in what circumstances, and when did they learn to do that, and so on. So there's a lot of potential work just in that and similar quotations. Now, one of the most important ways of developing students, young people who have a sense of agency, who take responsibility and demonstrate an internal locus of control, is the response we make to them as adults in their lives. So this is an example from Year 7, great examples of some helpful teacher language that puts the responsibility back on them for things that they've done well and also things that haven't gone well. So those are some examples there. You'll be able to think of a lot more, I suspect. One approach that this theme links very closely to the mindset focus is the growth mindset work, which you're probably familiar with, I would imagine. It's basically a set of beliefs that adults communicate to learners, which challenges the notion that skills are fixed and can't be changed, and they encourage adults to focus on effort rather than outcome, for example, and how they praise children and young people. Later work in the area of growth mindset also incorporates the importance of taking responsibility and encourages learners to develop an internal locus of control, promoting agency and self-efficacy. So it's a nice link there to what a lot of schools are already doing. So you might like here to pause the presentation and have a think about the ideas that are listed on the slide.